Talked earlier in Denis's presentation about start small, think big, scale fast. We're thinking big and we're scaling fast. So why do we are starting small, but some of us are a long way down that road. So that case study was incredible. And also the power of partnership, growing through partnership. What Zanzibar Airports Authority have done here is create a world-class piece of infrastructure because they brought in the right partners. And that was a massive reason that we're here as well. So huge kudos to SAFE for going, hey, we're not the experts. We'll bring in the experts. We'll elevate the experience and look at the result in terms of that revenue growth. Right, we have 15 minutes until we announce where AviaDev 2026 will take place. We will announce the venue and the dates in 15 minutes' time. But before that, we've got a really, really interesting session that's something a little bit different, which is going to address an often overlooked but substantial airline operating cost, which is, of course, insurance. So I'd like to invite Michael to join me, along with Denis. And we've got a bit of a unique session format for this, but Michael's a real pro media guy. So over to you, Michael. Show me how it's done.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, Denis.
Hi, everyone. Of course, Denis coming up. As John rightfully mentioned, I do wear a number of different hats. Today it's insurance, but usually it's business development and also media and broadcast journalism as well. What I find remarkable about our industry is how it brings people together from various walks of life. And I get the opportunity, well, the privilege really, to speak to different people, familiar faces I see in the crowd, and hear all your stories. So we're going to be speaking today. Denis is going to start us off, and then he's going to come for a fireside chat. Usually interviews for me take about an hour, but we're going to try and get it done in 15 minutes. I hope that works. Yeah. All right, Denis, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues. It is an honor, always, to speak in front of aviation industry representatives, especially such an interesting region as Africa. I will try not to take too much time before the announcement of AviaDev 2026, and I will try to address the core point why insurance is also important for you as the real sector of aviation. And here we go. Actually, my role at AI12 is to deal with claims, and my former experience as an airline risk manager makes me authorized maybe to talk about how insurance connects to the actual airline business on a daily basis. To start with, why there is the need for insurance and why myself and our colleagues and insurance underwriters in London and in Europe talk so much about aviation insurance and importance of aviation insurance. So first of all, we're talking here about significant values of modern aircraft and liability limits involving passenger carriers all over the world, especially to such regions like EU and US and some of the Asian and Middle Eastern countries where the requirements are so high. So probably lots of you would know that wide-bodied aircraft such as 787 or A380 would require at least $1 billion limit, and the values of such aircraft would exceed $100 million. There is authorities requirement and legislation. I've seen quite a few representatives of civil aviation authorities of different countries, so you know for sure that there are certain demands from CAA of different countries towards the airlines of what kind of insurance coverage there should be in place, liability including. Leasing companies, several times lessors have been mentioned during this conference, and leasing companies also demand certain confirmation of coverage, both on hull and liability. So the airlines has to purchase such insurance policies. at the end of the day, insurance is a risk management solution. So if you properly assess your risk at a certain point, you would like to swap the risk to the companies which has been created for this, and this is the insurance. And social relevance. A couple of days ago, a massive loss of 787 of Air India. Again, media will be attracting as much attention as possible to this event. And despite aviation transport is by far the safest in the world, whenever there is an accident, whenever there is a crash or some issues on board involving casualties, airlines are under the spot of media, have to respond, and insurance policies also can cover this risk, also be your guidance and protection in case of such situation. Why flight safety is important for insurance market and insurance underwriters? Well, first of all, a risk assessment is dealing with the risk profile of an airline, what kind of aviation safety is presented in each particular airline, in each particular airport or MRO or ground handling company. So what kind of standards are there? And for underwriters to assess the risk, they definitely would like to know about what kind of level of flight safety is there. Pricing, that's the first leads to the second point. Those airlines, those companies in aviation industry that can present a significant level of flight safety can demand a better rate, a better pricing from the insurance market. Scope of coverage and aggregate limits, actually that's one of the parameters of not only pricing, but also on what kind of coverage, how comfortable you will feel purchasing an insurance policy. That might also depend on what kind of flight safety level you will be able to represent. And level of control and freedom, some airlines, depending on the good level of flight safety or lack of evidence of good flight safety, might face certain restrictions, either about the limits or about the scope of countries that they are allowed to operate. And again, if we as brokers evidence that our clients can present a good level of flight safety, we can fight underwriters back and make a pushback on getting better solutions for you. So my favorite theme is when we up to the claims, there is also a clash between aviation engineers and aviation underwriters who are ready or more often not ready to pay for some claims. And the core thing is that for an airline, it's critical to get the aircraft back in the air, to operate, to have no gap, no business interruption. But for the underwriters, there is also a so-called economical reasonability of costs that you bear when you spend money for repair. And unfortunately, there's always a so-called gray area when the airline is trying to make the repair perform as soon as possible, and the underwriters and appointed loss adjusters are trying to drag the airline down a little bit, asking for a more reasonable solution, looking for spare parts with the comparable resource, and not covering indirect costs, such as mentioned business interruption. And that's always a process of negotiations, a process of getting agreed somewhere in between, meeting your clients on one side and meeting the requirements of the insurance market on the other. This probably the six most difficult cases when we face that the underwriters might be really difficult. First would go for hull war risks. As you probably know, the war risks insurance underwriters, this is a separate market in comparison to all risks. And whenever there is a claim that falls down under the hull war, it always takes a long time. So the recent loss we faced with one of our clients, an aircraft was shot in Haiti last year. It took us a little bit over a year to make the underwriter agree to the total loss. Finally, we succeeded, but it took us a year. And we held the negotiations with really frustrated leasing company. We were having a frustrated insurer. We were having frustrated and very stubborn loss adjuster. So putting all these parties together was a real mess. Liability claims from US and EU citizens. Unfortunately, there is a difference in so-called cost of life, depending on the region, depending on the country, and depending on the citizenship. And US courts, US plaintiff lawyers, and their colleagues from EU, when they have an opportunity to drag the case, the litigation in the courts of citizenship of the passengers and their relatives, the claims, might be several hundred of million US dollars. So the biggest claim in 2022 in the US court for two people dead on the accident on the road, on the truck, was 426 mil, just for two people. So that was the liability of the company that owned the truck. In aviation, it's about the same. So we do evidence US courts and EU courts signing off astronomous amounts of money as the compensation, and that all goes on insurance market. Unregistered engines and APU FODs, sometimes the BSI reports shows that there is some damage that happened a certain time ago and there is no registry in the log, and that would be definitely a difficult case proving to the underwriters that this is an insurable event. Cruise employees' casualties. Unfortunately, when there is a total loss, some airlines surprisingly see that the passengers are being compensated with a much higher values, much higher sums of money than their cruise and employees. And so making this right, purchasing additional insurance policy to secure the positions of your employees and your crews, this might be critical. And mentioned already, when you need to get your aircraft back in the air, the sooner the better, you would probably go purchasing a new spare part instead of the damaged, while the underwriters would be looking for repairability or a spare part from the market of a comparable resource. And that's the difference will be on the airline to cover. Sorry, something went wrong. Yeah. The two recent news I would like to mention, because this is a very good connection to what I'm talking about. Air India, this is the first 787 total loss for their 14 years history of this type. Over 200 passengers on board. Some of them are UK citizens, so remember what I was saying about the courts and the possible sums of money. And war risk insurance, 3 days ago, UK court finally admitted that 146 aircraft stuck in Russia in 2022 should be covered by war risks underwriters. And that, I expect, would have a significant impact on pricing in the following months. war risks underwriters, well, tend to be the most stubborn and reactive guys I've ever met, and imagine they would use this to push the rates up, or we might evidence a lack of capacity because some underwriters, some insurance companies would be refusing to provide capacity for these risks furthermore. But this is the freshest news, and I don't want to speculate too much on how it might impact the aviation insurance market, but definitely it will. So, Michael, I'm ready for your questions.
Please come. So we've got about 45 seconds left to come through, Denis. So I'm going to do my best to try and get this going.
Let's go.
Now, Denis, very important topic that you just brought up. You covered, of course, Air India. First 787 loss. It's actually there's one sole survivor confirmed as media reports indicate. But looking over the last 6 months or so, again, there have been significant losses to the market. American, Delta, Jeju. What should people in this room know about the market's reaction when events like this occur?
Well, I think two things. Please make sure that you split the overall market reaction, which indeed will be there, and second, that each airline, airport, MRO, or the company of aviation industry, you have your own loss history, you have your own understanding of flight safety, and please make sure that you are presented and well seen by the market. It's not only about sending profiles and sticking up to tender process or whatever. Please make sure that you have someone inside your company and someone by the side of your company representing your interest and fighting against the insurance market. Because at the end of the day, you're getting a price for your particular business, for your operations. So please make sure that you work with professionals, you hire professionals, and you get the pricing as transparent as you can think of.
Staying current and relevant to what's happening in the industry today. Now, I'm sure some of you may have gotten the news that there was bombing which happened yesterday, and some of us have received notifications that our flights have changed. Now, looking at that, and again, you also spoke about the court ruling, another impact and influence on the market. Just keeping on that, how does that influence, again, how the market then approaches, premiums or pricing? And you spoke a little bit about that. Give us insight.
Well, to my mind, news like that, they give space for speculations. And in this case, insurance market can be compared to stock exchange market. They can overreact or react immediately, but this is more of a buzz rather than something real. The losses, on the other hand, and UK court decision, that is something solid. That is something that can really impact the insurance market. Here we're talking about the $4.5 billion US loss. So that means that in the insurance market there is such a big hole in their cash flow, in their earnings, and the way it works, unfortunately, all airlines all over the world will have to repay them back, because at the end of the day you can think of insurance as diverted bank credit, bank loan. The only thing is that you pay your rents first and then you get the money in case there is a loss. So
what are some of, and I'm going to take us a little bit on a tangent here. I see we've been given a little bit of extra time, 2 minutes left. Taking us on a little bit of a tangent here. Again, you're interacting with various markets all around the world. What are some of the misconceptions, the biggest misconceptions that you see from clients or airlines or operators in the industry when it comes to risk placement in the market?
Well, first of all, the misconception, we were talking about African region in particular. The misconception is we tend to think that aviation underwriters are somewhat extremely smart people. Sorry, James, you've been in this army before. But at the end of the day, they are human beings as well. and they have certain perceptions which they sometimes can't take away from the table. And as I said earlier, apart from sending figures and papers, make sure you're well presented, human to human, person to person, real airline business. Invite underwriters to see your facilities. Send your representatives to meet the underwriters, to present your airline, to make sure that you are seen and treated individually on the basis of what you really are, but not what you are behind the papers and figures. It's about the perception.
On the topic of perception, especially for safety which remains a cornerstone of our industry. Now, risk in Africa is often perceived to have a higher risk profile in comparison to other regions all over the world. Now, in this room, you've got the airlines, you've got regulatory bodies, you've got operators, ground handlers. What can the industry do collectively to start to change the perception of Africa's risk profile to the market?
My favorite, hire professionals and work with professionals in flight safety, in representatives. Don't find yourself in the lack of connection between the airlines and the representatives of the business and the CAA of the country. Because at the end of the day, you have the same goal. You need to make African aviation business grow up, be presented better, be perceived better. And I think that rivalry between CAA and the airlines is a big mistake. I'm coming from the country where it's always a rivalry between the CAA and the airlines. Whenever there was a loss in Russian airline, the airline was shut down. So that's it. They didn't give any chance for an airline to restore its good name.
Well, Denis, that's our cue. I see John just came up here. So thank you, everyone. I hope that was insightful for you.
Thank you,
and partnership. Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, team.